Are you like us? Tired of all the politically correct horseshit on podcasts and in the media? Need a podcast that's funny, smart, and gassy? It's not politically correct. It's just correct. This is the Carolina Underground. Throw that middle finger in the air. Raise them up. Because it's time to get loud, proud, and in your face. Generation X. Generation X. The best generation of all time meets the grit of the South. It's about everything and nothing at all. From current events to woolly boogers to movies to politics. Loud, brash, funny, and never, and I do mean never, predictable. The Carolina Underground with Mark and Mike.
Yo, 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 yo! Welcome back to the Carolina Underground, coming to you live from the replica Bat Cave with a slight breeze coming in from the fan in the ball chillins. And I also have my partner in high crimes and misdemeanors, who is somewhere floating above Sparkleberry.
Well, hello, my fellow moron. How are you?
You know, I got to thinking, I don't remember exactly what episode that was commented on, but it was back when we were discussing hot and heavy politics, so I'm assuming whoever put that on there was a Democrat.
Oh, I have no doubt. I mean, very simply from the fact that there was no discussion or elicitation to have a conversation. So,
Well,
but hey,
I want to ask you a question.
You can ask me anything you want now. The question is whether or not I will answer you.
Well, on a day-to-day basis, what is one of the most important things that you got to have every few seconds to sustain life?
You mean other than pornography?
Other than pornography.
That, of course, I was kidding, of course, but well, I'm sure you're talking about. I'm sure you're talking about oxygen.
Right, oxygen. And oxygen, for the most part, we understand is created through photosynthesis. Correct?
Well, there is, but it depends on when people think of photosynthesis, they think of the Amazonian rainforests, but so the Amazonian rainforests do produce a tremendous amount of oxygen, but all of the oxygen that they produce is consumed within the Amazon basin. So the vast majority of the oxygen that is created that we breathe is created by the plankton which it is using photosynthesis. But
all right.
Anyway, sorry about that. I just
that's good. I mean, that is good though. But the general consensus is the accepted train of thought and scientific thought is it is created by photosynthesis of
generally
some form
speaking,
or
yes.
some matter.
In some form or
well,
fashion, yes.
Strap into your seatbelt because we've mentioned it once before, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. We have some straight sci-fi shit tonight because we have now discovered dark oxygen. And that doesn't mean it's chocolate flavored.
Well, then we'll have to have all the DEI requirements come out to make sure that they've got the same outcomes as light oxygen, I reckon.
Well, and what's interesting about this is this oxygen is created in the depths of the ocean floor 3 to 5 miles down in the absence of sunlight.
That would not really surprise me, honestly, but go ahead, tell me more. I have not run across this particular tidbit.
Well, this has been a recent discovery. It was recently in several magazines and the BBC. I think it was in Popular Mechanics and the BBC and a few other things. But there is an area that is nestled between Hawaii and the western coast of Mexico known as the Clarion Clipperton Zone.
Okay.
And it is one of the hotbeds of contention for deep sea mining operations and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it is literally littered with trillions of these potato-sized rocks.
Hmm.
And these potato-sized rocks are polymetallic nodules,
Hmm.
and they contain various metals, and they produce the dark oxygen through seawater electrolysis.
All right. Well, that's pretty interesting. Go ahead.
And what's interesting is these rocks have, and they have been referred to. Elon Musk has referred to them as a battery in a rock.
Interesting.
And what they do is they have electrical charges,
Hmm.
and they have the potential that when they, if the conditions are right, they are able to split the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Now,
Hmm.
some scientists disagree, but it's kind of important for a couple reasons, because it goes to prove, one, that we don't know everything that's going on our planet, and
Well,
that
we
we might
absolutely
want
don't.
to, right.
Well, so again, one of the other things you may or may not be aware of is that there are microbes in the soil that produce electricity. Okay,
Hmm.
you can stick electrodes in the dirt. If you just take a multimeter, and I have not tried this myself, but if you take a multimeter and stick the two electrodes in the dirt relatively close to each other, but
Hmm.
far enough away that they don't short, you'll pick up a voltage. Now, it's not much, but pretty much everything that we consider to have life operates on electricity in some form or fashion. So it really would not surprise me at all if there is some other some other mechanism out there that we are just now discovering that
Hmm.
generates oxygen. Now, what I'm curious about is how much is it generating, and is it just in this one spot that they found it, or is it
No,
something that's going on
it's in
worldwide?
the, it's going on worldwide, because they found some off of Norway, up in the North Seas.
Hmm.
It's really deep though for these particular rocks,
Hmm.
and their shape. They said they were about the size of potatoes, just
Okay.
laying on the ocean floor. But it's like they that all the oxygen that is produced, it is also consumed in that anoxic environment. And of course, anoxic
Yeah.
is, the lacks oxygen or is
Right.
greatly deficient in oxygen. But the possibilities there is, then maybe we need to redefine and relook at the manner in which we define a planet being able to be habitable.
Hmm.
Because if you don't necessarily have to have photosynthesis to create oxygen for creatures to survive, then then that just opens up a whole different plethora of possibilities.
Well, now, but to be clear, now, first off, I need to know more about these taters, okay? Because how are they? Now, first off, you're not actually producing oxygen. You're probably the likelihood that atoms are really only going to be formed in a fission or fusion. More likely fission.
Hmm.
Actually creating the atom is going to be a fusion reaction, okay? Because all of the atoms are created in the hearts of stars, okay? That's what stars do, okay? And I'm not talking about the ones in Hollywood, but this is my understanding of the physics. Now, so what they're doing is it's probably some sort of a catalytic reaction, and even photosynthesis is essentially a catalytic reaction. What they're doing is consuming the carbon from the CO2 and
Hmm.
releasing at least one of the O2s that are left over. So I'd be interested in knowing more about how these rocks are, so what they're doing is they're liberating oxygen either from the water, or there's a metric ton of methane down there at these lower
Well, and
depths as
it said,
well.
and it's like, well, and what they said is like it's a form of electrolysis, and
Electrolysis, yeah,
right,
okay,
and they
yeah,
have an electrical current that it actually ends up splitting the water atom
yep.
into hydrogen and oxygen.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. So you're not creating oxygen is what I'm getting at.
Right,
Okay.
right,
You're
right.
liberating it from an existing molecule, and electrolysis is, I mean, you can do that with a battery and some
Right.
water, couple of electrodes. Well, you don't even really need the electrodes, but they help. You could just take some copper wire and stick it on
Mhm.
either end of a battery, and you'll get the electrode. So that's an interesting thing, and yeah, I mean that's actually fascinating. I wonder if it is some sort of a catalytic reaction, or if I mean it's fascinating to me that there's some kind of a battery being produced the size of a potato naturally.
Mhm.
So of
Well,
course that's gonna.
and the potential for these quote unquote potatoes
Hmm.
are limitless because the ones that they have brought back up to the surface,
Hmm.
they actually work like batteries.
Well, yeah, they would.
And they store energy, and they're to a greater degree than what we are capable of storing in current batteries now.
Now that's even more fascinating. That is even more
Well,
fascinating.
and it goes hand in hand with, well, in Japan they've created a new battery that uses depleted uranium
Uh-huh.
to, but it's kind of, that's a little bit dangerous. I don't know if I want some uranium laying around or in my cell phone or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but uranium's not anywhere near as dangerous as people make it out to be. I mean, for example, most of the radcon gear that you're wearing when you're working, around uranium is
Hmm.
actually intended to protect the uranium from the oils in your skin, which would cause it to be, it would cause it to be
Degraded any further.
degraded. Yeah, and so I mean, again, it's an alpha emitter primarily, and alpha and beta particles don't have enough energy to make it through the layer of dead skin
Hmm.
cells. So if you were to eat a bunch of uranium, then you'd have a problem. But we get more depending on how much uranium it is. We get a whole lot more radiation, gamma radiation from the
Hmm.
sun. And if you're that worried about it, just make sure you got some lead hanging around that you can put between you and water works pretty
All
well
right.
too.
Well, and
So
that's one reason why we have survived everything, because we used to eat lead-based paint.
there you go. There you go.
But one
So
thing that, in conjunction with this, when I'm reading this article and I get to the bottom of it, and of course, I'm one of the few people I think that when I get to the bottom of the article and it gives me their source material, I
mhm.
actually click through it and read some of the other articles.
Right.
And one of the articles was actually put out by Greenpeace, which left me questioning whether this was actually a legitimate scientific find, or if this is something that the environmentalist yahoos are setting up as the next fight just to stop deep sea drilling and mining and stuff like that, because they're talking about how these little potato rocks need to be protected and all this stuff. And it made me just kind of think, well, is this something that they're throwing out there like some endangered moth that mates once every 7,000 years just to thwart something that they think that could be dangerous to the environment or the
Hmm.
ecosystems at that depth, or of course if you think it's anoxic, then very you wouldn't think that there was many ecosystems down there to thwart.
Well,
But
you know, so again, the other thing that you're going to run into is the ancient aliens crowd is going to tell you that they were manufactured with technology we don't understand and scattered all over the ocean depths. Now, again, that may have been something that the Atlanteans did way back when. Who knows? I mean, again, it's fascinating to me, and it's worth the research to determine
hmm
if it's accurate or not. It's just a shame that the unrecognized oligarchy of the world has done so much to erode our confidence in everything that there is. But speaking of bottoms, did you hear about the woman in Texas whose behind caught on fire?
Well, I mean, she is near the border. Did she go to the taco truck?
No, what had happened is she's one of those women that wanted to look like Kim Kardashian, so she got the BBL implants in her behind.
Oh Lord Jesus, have mercy.
Yeah, and so the long story short, she her this is that my understanding. I only came across this today, and I mean, you come in with some actual science, and here I'm talking about, and again, nobody should have the problem of having their butt catch on fire. But at any rate, as I understand it, from what little I was able to come across on this, she had gotten the behind implants,
Mm-hmm.
but she couldn't feel her heated seats anymore. So she went somewhere. And again, this is just what I have come across and
Well,
what
you
I've
now
read. So
and
I'm
well
not,
now I
yeah,
got one thing to say though. You're in Texas, so how often do you need your heated seats in Texas?
you're looking way too deep into this, my friend. But at any rate, so the end result, she couldn't feel the heated seats because of her butt implants, and so and this is again, I know this is only what I've read today.
Mm-hmm.
And so she paid somebody to jack up the voltage on her seat
Oh Lord,
warmers,
she
and
voided her warranty right there.
and they reacted with the silicone and the butt implants and set her behind on fire. Now again, all right, the humanity of the situation, it's horrifying, okay? But
But it is funny.
it, you know, again, I've seen all these women with these behinds that are so dadgum big, they have to turn sideways to go through a door.
It
I
looks
don't
like a
find it an
Volkswagen
attractive.
Beetle in the back end.
Yeah, I don't find that an attractive look, and I don't understand it. And the fact that you can set your behind on fire because of just, I can't, I'm sorry, I do find that humorous. But I'm going to get off of this. Now, I mean, again, you can look it up. Houston woman's butt catches fire, and you will find clips about that and commentary about it. I swear to you, because I could not believe it. But I did see something the other day that Hubble, um, you know, galaxies rotate, right?
Right. Yep.
And some of them rotate clockwise, and our galaxy happens to rotate counterclockwise. And somebody has, through the Hubble telescope, they have come up with the percentage of uh, galaxies that rotate clockwise and the percentage that rotate counterclockwise. Now, what would you
Okay.
assume that would be? That percentage would be.
I would assume if I would hedge my bets and say 50-50.
So that would be what you would assume. Okay, because
Right.
everything in nature operates on a bell curve, and
Right.
the average exists. So it's
And
less,
for one action, there's always an opposite action.
right? Pretty much. Now, so the end result is that only about 30% or less of the galaxies rotate counterclockwise.
Hmm.
Now, again, I didn't go too deeply into this article because I have a day
Mm-hmm.
job and I have lots of family that I have to take care of. But the one of the things that is disturbing about this is they're saying is that somehow the math works out so that the universe as a result was created out of a supermassive. Okay, you got supermassive black holes at the center of pretty much every galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
but like a supermassive black hole created the universes. Now, there's another theory that it's because of the wavelengths of light And because we're rotating counterclockwise, it's harder for us to see the ones that rotate counterclockwise. But, I mean, that's the closest thing I can come up with that's as interesting as dark oxygen or a woman with her butt afire.
I saw a picture today, and I haven't had a chance to research this. So this is one of those things to where we're just kind of iffy on. But I saw a picture of a copper mine today,
Mm-hmm.
a large copper mine,
Okay.
and and they sat that beside a picture of the Grand Canyon,
Mm-hmm.
and they look eerily similar.
Oh, no, that's intriguing.
And they also had said, and I didn't realize this, and I'm going to have to do some more research on this.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of areas of the Grand Canyon that are off limits.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of no-fly zones, even for drones and everything around the Grand Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And in some of these caves and places in the Grand Canyon, they have reported finding Egyptian artifacts in these caves.
Huh. Well, now, see, again, this is so that's another thing I saw also, and I hadn't had time to research this either, but they did some, apparently, according to this, they've found, um, cylindrical structures and voids underneath the Great Pyramid in Giza.
Hmm.
Okay.
And we
And,
mentioned that a couple weeks ago on this podcast too.
oh, okay. Well, and so again, I hadn't looked into it any deeper, but the words or what they said in the article that I was scanning through real briefly, was that these things were, they basically looked to some people like they were something along the lines of a Tesla coil. Okay. And this feeds
Hmm.
into the, whole theory that, there was a significantly advanced, technologically advanced civilization prior to
Hmm.
the end of the Younger Dryas, and the end of the great flood that happened at the end of Younger Dryas wiped everybody out. Now, again, that bears, that also goes in along with the ancient aliens theory, which, again, I'm not sure if any alien species out there has actually figured out how to, warp space or fly faster than the speed of light or can go from planet to planet, and I
Hmm.
really don't care because it doesn't matter to me unless they come down tomorrow. And then I really hope I hope they like it here and
I
aren't
just
me.
hope they bring Elvis back.
Yeah, well, there you go. Oh, and I got something to tell you about mayonnaise too. But at the
Oh
end of the
Lord
day,
Jesus.
in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, they've got pictures of what clearly look like light bulbs.
Right.
And again, a lot of these things that, inside these tombs and stuff, that they were created. There's no evidence of soot. Now, again, people talk about using mirrors and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's what people have been clever and creative since there have been people. Okay. But there's evidence. And again, you've got the Baghdad batteries. Okay. That they found, and they very clearly are batteries. Okay. So on and on and on. But the end result is that, I find it very easy to believe that there was a, more technologically advanced civilization that was wiped out by a cataclysm, because there's just too many records of cataclysms in the past. And another thing, I'm going to go down another rabbit hole before I talk about mayonnaise. Um,
Okay.
so the I was talking, actually, this was a conversation that sparked this, that I was having with my son, where he was talking about how human beings couldn't possibly have existed at the time of the dinosaurs, because the dinosaurs would have wiped them all out. Okay. Now, I don't know.
Well, see,
I
I kind of disagree with that because there
right.
are some drawings from the early Middle Ages that show clearly people riding things that look like dinosaurs.
Well, there are a bunch of stones in South America that very clearly have drawings of dinosaurs, and they predate when we started discovering dinosaur fossils through
Mm-hmm.
archaeology, and they could very easily be faked. But I mean, they could be faked, but the proliferation of these things makes that highly unlikely. But my point was with that we have dangerous animals that can kill humans at the drop of a hat right now. They're not everywhere, and I don't think that the dinosaurs were everywhere either. I'm sure they had their habitats where they hung out, where they had their feeding. I mean, again, we got crocodiles. You telling me a crocodile can't wipe out a person if they catch him?
We got great white sharks.
We got great white sharks. We got polar bears. We got grizzly bears. We got all kinds
We
of
got
stuff.
orcas,
Yeah. So, I
and they
just,
eat shark livers by batting them up in the belly.
yep. And that's the only part that they eat. But it scares the crap out of a great white shark.
Scares the
So,
crap out of me too, because that's a big rascal.
oh yeah, absolutely. So mayonnaise. And this was really upsetting to me when I saw this particular thing. This was on a little YouTube short, that I saw actually that, they were showing, and it was actually my favorite mayonnaise. Most of the mayonnaise out there on the shelves these days is has soybean oil and canola oil in it.
I think I saw that same short, or you sent
Yep.
it to me.
No, I didn't send it to you because I didn't want to break your heart. I know how fond you are of mayonnaise, but I also know you make your own.
Well,
So,
I did, but I did see that video because I think it was a YouTube short because he was talking about because he was looking at the ingredients in the
right.
grocery store and it was all
Hmm.
oils and additives and stuff. And
Yep.
it's like we don't even eat. That's my hopes for that was one of my hopes that would come out of the second Trump administration. And we're not going to get into politics, but I was kind of hoping, particularly with Bobby Kennedy as the HHS secretary, that a lot of these chemicals and stuff would finally be taken out of our foods. And with that, if we are going to follow one thing that Europe has done, I
Hmm.
think that is the only thing with merit that Europe has done that we should follow.
Oh no, I agree completely. Well, it may not be the only thing, but again, that is one thing that our food needs to be food.
Right.
Okay. And
And not
again,
chemicals.
yeah, that's one of the things that that in my mind, is a highly likely cause of all of the food allergies that we have is that
Mhm.
we've got all of these things that really we wouldn't consume if we were consuming the actual food products, but it's cheaper to
Well, and
manufacture it that way, more
here's a
profitable.
interesting tidbit of information.
Sure,
I bought some steak cut fries.
you did.
I did. I like steak cut fries, but I couldn't decide on a brand, so I decided, and Orida is the one I would normally get because I do know that Orida is made in the United States. It's in the company is on the line between Washington and Idaho in a little town somewhere, right?
Hmm.
But they didn't have them, they were out. So I ordered the store brand of the steak cut fries.
Hmm.
And they come, cook them in the air fryer. They're delicious. And then as I get done, I was like, this is interesting because that was after the mayonnaise video. So I get to looking. Now, in potatoes, these are potatoes.
Hmm.
First off, they're a product of Belgium. So
Okay.
they were from Belgium and they had sunflower oil in them.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sitting
Well,
here thinking, we're in the United States. We have the capacity and probably do grow more food than everybody in this country can eat. There's no reason why somebody in this country should be hungry.
no, there's no reason anybody in the world should be hungry. We have the capability and to be able to grow food. But again, when you and I were growing up, there were I mean, nobody had a gluten allergy, and
No.
there were only a very tiny, tiny, tiny number of people that had peanut allergies. Okay. I mean, we ate peanut butter all the time, peanut butter and jelly and stuff all
Hey,
the time.
we walked around eating goober peas, baby.
Absolutely. And now, I mean, there was a young girl at my church that was so allergic to every piece of food. I don't know how they kept her alive. There was virtually nothing this child could be anywhere close to without having an allergic reaction. And it's got to
Hmm.
be, again, from what I understand, the whole thing, the legislation that allowed them to start using um, synthetic things in synthetic additives and synthetic things to make food products and medical products came from the Rockefellers. And this was after he had, they broke up Standard Oil because it had become too large and too powerful and was too much of an influence on the government, actually, as I understood it. And he swore he would destroy or he would destroy America after that. Now, whether or not that was just something he said in haste or not, I don't know. And again, they may have thought that this was a um, that this was something that would benefit mankind. They may have had honest and altruistic motives about it. I just don't know. I can't tell
Well,
you.
I
But
honestly don't think they, I mean, if they had altruistic motives about it,
mhm.
then why do they still use the real ingredients in other countries?
Well, I'm just talking about the United States. But again, I think the ultimate motive is corporate greed and wanting to make
It
more
it
money for
cheapened
less.
it cheapened the production of the product.
Yeah, absolutely.
It also, I think, in some points and in some things, because it's hard when you get to eating this junk food. It's hard to give it up. I think these chemicals make it addictive as well.
Oh, it is. Again, that's one of the things that they do. They talk about the like the additives and whatnot that they put, and that's what causes the obesity epidemic. Okay, again, that was one of those things. I love looking at the old movies. Okay, and whatnot, because like prior to steroid use, mass steroid use, and all of that stuff, I
Hmm.
now, again, I can't tolerate a lot of them because I looked at one the other day. Oh, I can't even remember the name of it. I thought it was animated, but it was a David Carradine movie.
Oh,
And
I never did like him as an actor.
well, I mean, he was the main character. I wish I could remember the name of it. Doggone it, it's out of my head now, but I'll remember it and I'll remember it about 30 minutes after the podcast and scream it, and everybody will look at me like my head's on fire. But I mean, he, he was skinny. I mean,
Hmm.
he wasn't a massive bodybuilder, and or anything like that. And the women, they weren't they didn't all look like Barbie dolls with magnificently huge tatas and a
with
great big butt.
non-flame retardant butts.
Right. Well, I mean, I think everybody's behind was flame retardant back then
Uh,
to
well, and
some degree.
and think about though too though we talk about like cancer rates and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Back in the old days, everybody smoked. Of course, in this
Oh yeah.
area, everybody grew their own tobacco.
Yep.
But
Yep.
and you never heard tell of people getting lung cancer and stuff like that. If they died something of with the lungs, it usually was tuberculosis.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And you didn't start
Well,
getting high rates of lung cancer until cigarette companies started cutting them and putting chemicals in the tobacco in the mass production of cigarettes.
that plus the fact that they used one of the components of the pesticide that they used to kill the bugs that eat tobacco is strontium 90, which is extremely radioactive, and you are taking that into your lungs. So there's yeah, a filter isn't going to stop strontium 90. Yeah, and
Not at all.
if you inhale alpha and beta particles, there's no dead layer of skin in your lungs to keep you from getting uh,
And we
getting
do have sad news
damaged.
this week.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Well, I guess if you're a Catholic, it's sad news. I don't like seeing anybody die, but the Pope has died.
Yeah, yep. He did.
Bless his heart. And
Hmm.
my wife is all up in arms because that's the last Pope.
Well, now, and again, she's talking about the prophecy of Saint Malachi. Okay, and I was talking to some folks about it today, and
And you know, the funny thing is when you see the prophecy of St. Malachi,
Mhm.
this shows you where my mindset is because I'm thinking of Dark Malik, who Revan cut his bottom jaw off.
No, different fella, different fella. I don't think anybody cut his bottom jaw off. It's okay, but
Well, it's okay. He didn't bleed to death because the lightsaber cauterized it as it
well,
was slicing through it.
of course, which would be one of the problems with that particular weapon. But I mean, if you're trying to kill somebody, you want them to stay killed.
Well, that's why you jab it through their eye socket and let it burn through and burn up their brains.
That's a that sounds a little
I've been working
violent.
on this.
All right. You done thought about it for a minute
Well,
or
and
two.
that's another thing too is every time somebody gets killed, it's a plasma thing, right?
Mhm.
And if you noticed, when they turn them off and they hook them back on their belts, everything's fine. Okay.
Mhm.
But when they get killed and it lands on the ground after they die and rolls around, there's colored smoke coming out of it. So why does the smoke come out of it if they get killed and it falls on the ground, or and not when they hang it back on their little hook thing on their belt?
Maybe the kyber crystal breaks or fractures when they drop it.
Well, now that's possible. Now look at you. You be
Mhm.
coming up in deep in Star Wars shit
I
now.
just, hey, I just that was just right off the top of my head. But back to Saint Malachi. Okay, the legend is that they made the prophecy and then it was hidden deep in the Vatican archives, which is possible. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff hidden
Oh,
in
is this the
Vatican
one that was
archives.
supposedly reopened and read by John Paul II or
And
something
they
like that?
reopened it and they read it, and there's several things I mean, it's been purported
Isn't
to
this
be.
also something that like the kids from Fatima
No,
supposedly
no,
saw? Okay, this is something different.
the kids from Fatima saw very different things, and there were a lot of people that were witness to those miracles. So I'm not,
Yeah, but
that
there
one.
was one that one of the girls, I think they both became nuns. One of the ones
Yes, and one
had
of them.
written some prophecy, but it wasn't able to be opened until after she died or something like that.
That's correct, and that was about the assassination of the Pope, and
Oh, okay.
the assassination attempt failed, but that was not. I mean, again, I'm not going to throw. There were too many things about that were that were proven to be true. So that one, I very much believe was actual divinity, and I believe in the miraculous content of that one. But with
Hmm.
Malachi, so they brought it back out, and he only prophesied like 13 additional popes, and he was supposedly in some kind of a state when he, did so. Some kind of a,
Hmm.
the word escapes my mind right now, because all I can think of is apocalyptic, and that's not it. But ecstatic state when he made the
Okay.
prophecy. And it's a lot like the Nostradamus prophecies where they'll tell you it's been uncannily accurate, but it was given in verse, which it's really, I mean, you can
Well,
read,
and two, it's easier to make sure they're accurate when you're reading it from
right. And
after it's happened and trying to piece it into what it applies to.
yeah. And so that's kind of what the end result is that there have been some pretty major inaccuracies on the list according to that. So I don't think that the apocalypse is going to happen before we get another pope elected. But again,
Well,
now it is, I find it really, uplifting that he was able to do, and I'm not Catholic, but again, I have friends that are. I
mhm,
find it very uplifting that he was able to attend and, even officiate in some portions of an Easter service before he was taken away. And so
Hmm.
I think that
Well, and
was a,
they released the official cause of death was a stroke.
yeah, and I believe that. Now he'd been, and he looked terrible, and he'd
I
been
mean, he
through
was
some bouts
88
of,
years old. He'd been around forever.
right, and he had just been battling pneumonia. And so, but I mean,
Well,
again,
let me tell you what
bless
I
him.
thought.
Tell me what you thought.
Well, was it you that told me about the movie Conclave?
I don't think so because I have not seen
Okay.
it.
All right. Well, there's a movie out called Conclave, right?
Hmm.
Or it's a TV series or something. I don't know. There's something out about it. I have not seen it. I was told about it. And when they announced that the Pope was dead this morning, the only thing I could think of was that movie Conclave, to where they get together and the next Pope that's chosen is transgender.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen. But there's an awful lot of there's an awful lot of um, questionable antics that go on in, and I hate to say this, but that go on in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church from what I have
Well, I mean, that's
observed in
any
my
kind of
life.
organization, truthfully.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I was having a conversation about that today. You get these people, especially when they're promoted based on things other than merit.
Hmm.
You get sort of nepotism and stuff like that. You wind up with people in positions of power that
Like the
really don't
Borgias.
belong there. Well, yeah, they really don't, and it's been that case forever. I mean, you know about you've
Hmm.
heard of the Peter principle, where you'll be promoted to the level of your incompetence. And one of the absolute dead giveaways that somebody has been promoted or is at a level that is beyond their level of competence are the people that are often wrong but never in doubt, okay, and cannot hear or listen to. They would rather be right, or excuse me, they would rather that their opinion be right than allow themselves to be corrected by someone that they consider to be inferior to themselves.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of that. There is a lot of that, and especially in the upper rare air muckety mucks, because I mean, again, they promote based on nepotism and who their friends are and stuff
Well,
like that.
and there's a real possibility. I was reading something today that we may actually end up getting a pope from the first pope from Africa.
All right. Well, they won't let one.
I mean that's
There won't be one from the United States because the Italians don't want there to be one. It's what I heard. Actually, I heard that on Fox News this morning when I was trying to find some news that was not about the Pope dying. I mean, again, it's a tragedy that he's passed away, and I know that I mean, it's a tragedy that anybody passes away because we miss them. It's not a tragedy for them because if they've lived their life right, then they go to heaven. But
hmm
I mean, the man was 88 years old,
hmm
so I don't
well,
understand
and
the
there's
levels
one
of
thing, yeah,
surprise.
one thing you had talked about earlier that you mentioned about the ancient alien theory, about how if aliens had come and
Hmm.
done all that. And I have recently started ascribing to a little bit different take on all that. And as we're running up against a hard stop here on our time,
Hmm.
but I don't necessarily, I have begun to believe that it's more dimensional travel than space travel.
Well, and again, that goes along with it, you know, with what I talk about all the time, that our senses are so limited. They might be here among us right now, and we just don't see them unless we're in the correct state. So there were some Doctor Who episodes that kind of rattled around along this philosophy. But, it may be dimensional travel, or they may just, we may just
They
not be
may
able to
just
see
be
them
smarter
normally.
than we are.
Well, they are smarter than we are because they're not the ones that, well, they may not be. They may be out there talking to one another. And there I was, flying around, and all of a sudden this thing that had wings on it came flying by. What in the world was that?
Them damn Neanderthals.
Yep, it could be. Might ought to have been. You never know. Well, I mean, again, the bottom line is my favorite quote from anything that I've ever seen was from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, I believe. It was either Rosencrantz and Guildenstern or it was Hamlet. Might have been Hamlet. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
That is in Hamlet.
Yep, I knew it, but it was
Horatio's in Hamlet.
It was Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that had the conversation, I believe.
Because that's the Hamlet Horatio captain of the gate is one of the quotes supposedly that Churchill recited when he rode the underground on the way to talk to Parliament before he gave the famous speech. And of course, I think that's totally partly made up for the movie, but that's neither here nor there. Still the greatest politician of all time, one of the top three.
Okay.
And that's it. And I have decided that we may go on a field trip and piss off the ice wall.
Well, we can talk about that, but Antarctica is a pretty dangerous place to hang around.
It's cold.
Well, and yeah,
It's going to be awful hard to get zebra cake rolls down there.
Oh, it's real hard to get zebra cake rolls down there. You best pack your carry-on bag full of them if you want them.
Shit, we have carry-on bag hell. We'll need a 747 full if we're gonna get down there and stay any amount of time. Because I go through them rascals.
I'm not that big a fan of cold myself. I mean, now as I understand it, there was an airline in Australia that used to fly people out over for a sightseeing tour over Antarctica, but it's not a friendly.
It ain't a real hospitable place.
Yeah, and from what I understand, I'll have to do some more research if you actually want to talk about it in depth. But from what I understand, they had a relatively minor mishap that would have been minor anywhere else, but they just about lost the entire plane and all the passengers on it, and so they don't do that anymore because it's just dangerous. If something goes wrong,
our luck.
Yeah,
just our luck.
Yeah, if something goes wrong, you are just out of luck. There is nothing, because it's a long way to go before you got anywhere that you can refuel or
get help or get zebra cake rolls
or even change.
And see, then it's going to be a 50-50 toss up between zebra cake rolls and Paul Roger.
Well, there you go.
Speaking of which,
yes,
it's
sir.
Paul Roger time.
All right, sir.
And that is the snout to the curly tail to the white iced chocolate striped zebra cake roll and everything in between. And we gone. Us morons are out of here, baby.
Y'all have a good night.
All right, you crazy bunch of motherfuckers. Wait, can we say mother? Anyway, you've been listening to the Carolina Underground. It isn't politically correct, it's just correct. Our motto is, if you can't go balls deep, don't go at all. Actually, that's not our motto, and I'm sorry, I don't even know what that meant. All right, we gotta go. We hope you enjoyed the show. And if you didn't, we hope it really pissed you off. Follow us on Twitter at Carolina UNDGRND. Underground, get it? Or drop us an email at Carolina UNDGRND. Get it? At northstate.net. We want to hear from you. Y'all be cool. See you next time on Carolina Underground.